Hi. As part of the SpinFX IT Easy Suite 2022 R1 release, we further enhanced the Easy Reporter SuccessFactors connector. Through this release, we focused on a few key areas. Functionality. So through the Employee Central reporting, we've added similar options to the info type reporting options, which means we've added date ranges, ability to report data across date ranges or specific dates. From a data perspective, we've added the ability to report on the leave balances from Employee Central Time Off module. And from a security perspective, we've catered for the new OAuth authentication that SuccessFactors has released. So let's take a closer look at these enhancements. So firstly, the leave balances from Employee Central. So from the Employee Central per person data that's generated, there is now a new menu option for employee time account balances. So this will allow you to drag on and report any of the leave balances straight from Employee Central. So it will report them against the account type, time account type. So you can actually report things like vacation leave balances, sick leave balances, and other leave balances that are in the system. So this menu will appear from the customer system after you regenerate the Employee Central fields themselves. So that will automatically appear. Secondly, we've added, as I mentioned, we've added the ability to report data similar to how the info types are reporting, so in SAP. But using the Employee Central fields. So there's a few changes here. First one is the ITDRG, which is report records between the report begin and end dates. So this is useful if you're wanting to report historical data. So normally a lot of our current reporting that we've built in is reporting data as of today. But now you can select specific data fields and to report for those specific data fields to report them between two dates. So for example, on the bottom of the screen, you can see that I've got one employee, but I'm reporting their job information, and each of the jobs and departments that they've been in over a period of time can be reported. So I've run this report for since 2015. And it's reported all of their org changes between that period. So that is simply a matter of selecting the ITDRG option against each of the fields, such as the department field or the end date field to report this. Secondly, we've also made it possible to select an info type at a Employee Central field at a specific point in time. We'll probably need to change that wording slightly for this now that I look at it. But essentially what we previously had is that we'd always report the data as of the end date of the report. So if you ran the report from the start of the year to today, the data would always be reported on today's date. But often there's the need to show something about where the employee was at the start period. So for example, which department the person was in at the start of the period and maybe at the end of the period. So now we can actually add this second option, which is essentially we can report the data as of the begin date of the report. So there's only two options here. There's the begin date of the report and the end date of the report. It's a little bit less limited than what the current info type does, but it allows you a little bit more flexibility there. So these options can be used, this option here, along with the ITDRG together on the same report. So the aim is to continue to build on the Employee Central reporting to really mirror similar functionality to what the info types have inside of SAP. The third change is around the authentication. So previously, SAP had a authentication for us to, because we actually have to log into SuccessFactors to get the data out of there. It was using an authentication called basic authentication. which essentially meant that that just passed through the login ID and a password to authenticate. So what SuccessFactors have moved to is a more secure method called OAuth, which means that there's secure keys that actually are set up between the two systems to make sure the systems know each other and are allowing them to talk to each other. So this is something that SuccessFactors is turning off the the basic authentication by the end of the year. So we're releasing this to cater for that. So what does this mean? So with OAuth, you'll have to, at a customer level, we need to set up a key to actually link the SAP system to the SuccessFactors system. This guarantees that those two systems know each other, and then the authentication is provided by the calling system, so from SAP. From an Easy Reporter perspective, what we then have is the ability to either still use a fixed user ID. So if you have an API user today, or the customer does, you can continue to use that API user. But often we also have customers that are saying, well, we want the users to have their own security. So whatever things that they can see normally in SuccessFactors, they should only be able to see through the Easy Reporter solution. And that's the second option we allow now, is to actually pass through the user ID of the logged in user. So that's who's logged into SAP will pass through that same user to SuccessFactors and use their security. So that means that if a manager or an employee can only see certain records for themselves or their team, then they still will only be able to see those certain records using the SuccessFactors authentication. So this is set up within the Easy Reporter setup. It actually uses a similar setup for EasyClone as well, and some of this is shared between Easy Reporter and EasyClone to set it up a bit easier. But essentially, we can select that the login will be via OAuth login. We need to say which system we're connecting to, so that's just the company ID. And then by clicking on the Maintain OAuth settings, you can then set up the authentication. As part of this, there's essentially an API key and a private key that needs to be uploaded into the system, and that's what provides the authentication between the two environments. There's some URLs, and then you select whether you're using fixed or user or the logged in user as the ID. Now, if you're using the fixed user, you can enter the fixed user ID here, and that's essentially the API user. So other than that, that's pretty much the setup for Easy Reporter to actually use this. And this setup, this bottom part here, is actually exactly the same for EasyClone. So if you decide you want to use the same authentication for both Easy Reporter and EasyClone, you can do that, which simplifies the setup, or you can have different setup per system. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the SuccessFactors connector changes. These are the actual specific changes from Spinifex side, and further more detailed videos will follow that will explain these further. Especially the OAuth, we'll do a specific video out on that one for internal and external. Thank you.